Second game of the day and my last upload before the Prophet and the Warlock lands tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoy it. We try to get some tic-tac-toe content as soon as possible, but in the meantime, it's Norsca and Lizardmen. Wulfrik and Werekin as the World Wanderer matches up against the Prophet of Sotek. We're playing against King of the Dead in this battle. Very good player. Took third place in the most recent ever chosen, and he's brought a super interesting build. Tehenhauin on a Ripperdactyl with the Umbral Tide and Salamander support for sniping out big targets, and the Star Chamber Guardians. The Temple Guard Regiment of Renown with Guardian Aura, and one of the meanest stat lines you will ever see out of any halberd unit in Mortal Empires. It's a front line of 3 Temple Guard and Red Crescent Skinks on the flanks, looking to scoot around behind and carve their way through Marauders in a killing frenzy for the Serpent God. Umbral Tide Salamanders are just straight up badass looking, humongous Komodo dragons who spit fire with a huge bonus for large, combined with Stalk and Perfect Vigor, and a Feral Carnosaur for hunting Lords and Mammoths. So as we get this battle underway, you'll notice the Star Chamber Guardians have poison. That's because Tehenhauin brought his Blade of Sotek, which gives every unit in a 40-meter radius poison damage and additional charge bonus. Now, normally I'd say that's redundant, because Red Crescent Skinks and Chameleons and a bunch of other stuff have poison, but here, with a defensive citadel made up of Temple Guard and Salamanders, it actually makes a lot of sense, because he's going to be playing this very high and tight, right? Trying to keep his formation close to the chest and make sure a lot of these units have that buff. On that Ripper, he's got a 20 bonus for his infantry, Flock of Doom, and Manticore summons, and he also brought the Plaque of Sotek for the ward save every time he casts. Even Sallies are getting the poison effect on their Flaming Spit from range, so even though I typically wouldn't want to spend 200 gold on that item, it's honestly not a bad idea here. I see what he's going for. And they have one job. If there's a Frostworm, a Mammoth, a big monster, anything like that, even the Werekin or Wulfrik on a horse, or certainly on his Mammoth, they are going to sit behind that Temple Guard Bastion and snipe it out. With that huge AP, with that huge bonus for large, they can wreck any single entity monster in the game in seconds if they focus fire. So with that really beefy front line, they're going to hold back in this choke point, try to snipe them out. Now across the field on the Tarantula Coast, new multiplayer map added in the Doomsayers update, Norsca are waiting to get stuck in. And if you want to deal with Lords and Heroes, especially if they're mounted on dinos, this Goon Squad is one of the best in the game. A Werekin with Ruinous Flesh to give missile resist and 18 armor, and Wulfrik the Wanderer on a horse. With that Hunter of Champions debuff, there is no bond stronger than that of a man and his Doge. And when that Doge happens to be a 300-pound killing machine, it's bad news bears for anyone who wants to get in their way. They, together, can take on a Carnosaur, a Stegodon, any big monster the Lizardmen are going to field. Now, for the rest of the build, it's Icehorn Marauders for the Perfect Vigor and immune to Psych, an Ice Wolves Chariot, 2 Fimir Great Weapons to deal with dinos, and 3 Marauder Horsemen operating out on the flanks. We'll have to be very cautious around those Salamanders, because a volley from them will decimate the lot. So King of the Dead is going to set up in this choke point, use those cliffs on both sides to their fullest potential, use them to protect his flanks, keep the Salamanders in the back line, as well as that Carnosaur, who might get poison in this game. I mean, a Carnosaur in a duel with poison is just absolutely brutal. And you can see why he brought that item. Again, I wouldn't normally spend that much, but Tehenhauin with that poison AoE debuff, or buff, I guess, for all his allies, it's pretty powerful. Now, in the Ripperdactyl, he gets to choose whatever engagement he wants, which is super important. Against Norsca, I mean, he'd be able to kill Marauders anyway, but with that Ripperdactyl, he will tear through them. And if I had gone heavier on the infantry fight, he'd be even scarier. But for this game, he's going to be more of a duelist, waiting to see if the Wulfrik and Werekin commit to a fight, and then jumping on top of them alongside the Carnosaur. Now in the center, it's brawling time. Star Chamber Guardians and the Icehorn Marauders about to duke it out. Of course, Marauders aren't going to be able to beat Temple Guard, but Temple Guard don't have the highest melee attack values ever, although the Council Guardians certainly do have a better melee stat line than your typical run-of-the-mill Temple Guard, and so it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. A Carnosaur should certainly swing that in the Lizardmen's favor, but beautiful charge up the middle from those Ice Wolf Chariots, bowling through those Great Weapon Skinks, and the Red-Crested Sons of Sotek are going to field that one in the morning. Ice Wolf Chariot's going to munch on them, and that is exactly where they want to be. In low armor, light infantry, they can rip through them in seconds. And Wulfrik and the Werekin hanging out, giving that attack or die buff, making sure the Fimir get in there too, and that should be able to break the left flank relatively quickly. Chariots can then go into the Skinks in the back lines, but Salamanders well protected right now. Tehenhauin and the Carnosaur above, and a Manticore summoned, and he's going to go right for Wulfrik in the back lines. Now, you probably come to the wrong neighborhood, Mother Lecca. Wulfrik and that Werekin going to team up and take down that Feral Carnosaur pretty quick. And some Marauders actually flanked all the way around and getting into the Skinks alongside that Marauder Ice Wolf Chariot, while the Marauder Horsemen put a little bit of pressure on the back lines. But for now, don't want to commit them too heavily, nor the Ice Wolves, because you want to wait for routing units to make sure they cannot rally. If you commit too early, they're going to take more damage, they're not going to be able to run down stuff too easily. King of the Dead doing a very good job making sure those Salamanders are firing at the Fimir, and with the Feral Carnosaur nearby, pull them out. No reason to stick around. That would be a very bad engagement for them. Manticore, yeah, you came to the wrong neighborhood, you're dead. And now Tehenhauin lands next to the Fimir. Pretty scary, but alongside the Carnosaur should be fine, except Wulfrik saw that opportunity, runs forward, and drops a Hunter of Champions. Now, I cannot stress this enough. This is so important when you want to successfully goon out a single entity. Make sure, if you have high mass units nearby, you pull them through the enemy lord, make sure they get the surround off first, and then, and only then, click an attack order. If you don't do that, then as soon as Hunter of Champions wears off, you'll be able to escape. If you instead put high mass units in front of his escape path, his avenue of retreat, then suddenly he can't go anywhere, and he is severely debuffed. He has 0 melee defense. Fimir completely surrounding him, and on that Ripperdactyl, he is counted as a large target. So look at that damage, just absurd damage going his way. He's down to half HP, less than that now. Wulfrik, Werekin, and Fimir Great Weapons beating him up. And with the Manticore nearby, Feral Carnosaur as well, they're trying desperately to keep him in the fight. It's a beautiful Flock of Doom, gonna hit everything on the Norscan right flank. With that said, it doesn't matter. The Prophet of Sotek is dead almost instantly, and that is the gooning potential of Hunter of Champions and a Werekin. Together, they are a brutal, amazing combination, and that's going to be the death of their leader. Just a small micro mistake, landed him a bit too early, gets punished severely, and the Prophet of Sotek has already proven his worth in more than a dozen battles on YouTube since the Everchosen, but he can still get wrecked by lords and heroes who are designed to counter large targets, and he is definitely a bit squishy on that Ripper. Tons of DPS, but even Malekith on Seraphon would have taken a severe beating there, and Teeny Weeny is out of the fight. Marauders coming in from multiple angles now, pancaking some Skinks in the back, and the steel jaws of the Norscan tribe are closing. All avenues of escape are getting sealed off. Carnosaur rampaging in Fimir with great weapons. Salamanders are still online though, and the Manticore is running. Now this is super important too. Summons have leadership now. So zombies and Cygors and summon Manticores from Transformation of Kadan will not be unbreakable. They don't crumble either. Instead, they evaporate once their timer is expended. Around 60 seconds for a lot of units, but it means you can't summon a unit in the middle of an army, get completely outflanked, and then expect them to hold and not break. So that's a good change. Salamanders charging into some of the Marauders, and that animation is so sick. When they slide into combat, smack them with their tail, really cool, and Sallies are going to munch on the remainder of those Marauders. Red Crested Skinks rallying for Sotek, but Team Jacob, that Werekin, flexing its muscles in the middle of everything. An honest-to-God werewolf in the heat of battle, ripping and tearing and pleasing Karnath with his likeness, and fireworks going off in the background. Can we just take a second to appreciate how amazing those look? The Salamander shots from the Umbral Tide and the regular Salamander hunting pack look so sick, especially with the Werekin painting the town red. Temple Guard doing what they can, and they did well against the Marauders and the Fimir. But the extra mobility the Norscans had here made sure that any routing Skinks would not come back to the fight. And of course, they don't have great leadership. Normally, if you're going to bring a Skink build, you're relying on the fact that they will be able to come back. And once the Temple Guard are left on an island completely unsupported by the rest of the main line, without a Lord, without the Feral Carnosaur, and only with the Salamanders firing in, it's going to be a lot harder to win that main line fight. And with the Marauder Horsemen now closing down the Salamanders in melee, the hopes of the Lizardmen for winning this battle are going to slip away like the sands of time through one's fingers, and looks like Norscans are going to be able to take this battle. And obviously a huge part of it comes down to Wulfrik the Wanderer and the Werekin working together to take out Tehenhauin super early on in the game before he had a chance to really make that Ripperdactyl felt. And I will say that Norsca matches up pretty well against that. I mean, I only had Marauders this game. My infantry, not particularly important. I did have the Marauder champions, but besides those, mostly just regular Marauders and the ROR version of them. So it was really the Chariot play, Fimir, and the Werekin and Wulfrik that were the big heavy hitters for me. And so the Ripper and bringing other Ripperdactyl units are usually going to be a lot better when you're focusing on killing a lot of high-value infantry. And here, there wasn't that much. It was just Marauders and that one elite unit. So the Ice Wolves and the Marauder Horsemen definitely did their job. Salamanders are going to have low kills, but a big part of that is because they're shooting at Fimir and the single entities, right? They're meant to kill the monsters. So they're never going to get a lot of kills because they aren't meant to kill infantry, really, except for using that fear to maybe run down some routers. And they did that relatively well, but most of those kills are going to be against Fimir. I will say the Ancient Salamander so far has impressed me more than the regular Salamander hunting pack, but you're paying more for that, obviously, and they are a single entity. So I've not done any testing between the DPS between those two units, but I do think the Ancient Salamander might be a better pick if you're looking for the ability to, one, terror route enemies, because they actually have terror, where the Salamander hunting pack, I believe, only have fear. They might actually have nothing. I'm not 100% sure. But then, yeah, I mean, your infantry killing power is going to be much higher with the Ancient Salamander. So maybe one of those would have been good there instead of the regular Salamander hunting pack, and maybe drop a skink too. But, I mean, the big problem, of course, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you lose your Lord early, you're going to have a hard time winning the battle. And Hunter champions and Werekin can certainly take your Lord down pretty quick.